Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. A recent expose published in Politico exposed leaders of young Republican groups as exactly what you would expect, a bunch of young, racist, white supremacists, basically. There were numerous references to black people as, quote, monkeys and the watermelon people. They positively mused about Republicans they believe would support slavery. Kansas Young Republicans Vice Chair William Hendricks more than a dozen times used the words Nigga or Nigguh, obvious variations of a racial slur that I cannot say here, when discussing an upcoming vote for the next chair of the Young Republican National Federation. Chair of the New York State Young Republicans, Peter Giunta, said that everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. That comment was met with, "Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. We gotta pretend that we like them. Hey, come on in, take a nice shower and relax." Boom, they're dead. The vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans, Bobby Walker, was seen as referring to rape as, quote, epic. These messages and many, many more like them were part of a trove of Telegram chats obtained by Politico that went back 7 months of messages amongst the young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. There were nearly 3,000 pages of chats from amongst a dozen young Republicans between early January and mid-August of this year. While the sort of racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric shared freely in these chats is undoubtedly appalling, one thing it isn't is all that surprising. Since Donald Trump gained political prominence, he has fostered an environment where these sorts of previously shunned and taboo topics are spoken of freely online and seemingly within the Republican Party amongst those coming up in the Republican power structure. Texas A&M sociology professor Joe Fagin was quoted as saying, "The more the political atmosphere is open and liberating, like it has been with the emergence of Trump and a more right-wing GOP even before him, it opens up young people and older people to telling racist jokes, making racist commentaries in private and public. It's chilling, of course, because they will act on these views." And while the current political climate has certainly given these people a sense that they are able to be more vocal about their more fringe views, I suppose it's also important to note that what gave them the most amount of freedom was the feeling that they were doing it behind closed doors. Yes, these young men feel that Donald Trump has given them a pass to be more racist, sexist, and casually speak about sexual assault as if it is a positive thing. They also made sure to only do it in spaces where they were surrounded by those who agreed with them. In a private space, in these Telegram chats, they were not publicly broadcasting these abhorrent views. They were doing it in a space where they felt safe and open to be who they really were, not public facing. And while the kind of vile messaging we see in these Telegram chats isn't exactly new or unique to them, I mean, we see guys talk like this online, unfortunately, all the time. What made these particularly noteworthy is that these are not just random edgy guys online. These are guys embedded in the Republican Party structure. They've got staff positions, they've got public-facing roles. These are guys within the party saying these things in their private chats where they think people will not see and where they feel that they are safe to take off their public-facing mask and spew the kind of hatred and vitriol that they have inside them that is who they are inside but can't express always in their regular public-facing lives. What's concerning is this really gives an insight into a possible future for the Republican Party. These are the guys that are coming up within the party who in the future will be holding much higher roles, who we now know when they think no one's looking are openly praising Hitler and Nazi ideologies. I think it really calls into question any hope that the Republican Party could possibly become more moderate and more often meet in the middle, as it were, with Democrats. I think that was the part that really got me. The authoritarian wing of the Republican Party is not forever. Once Trump is eventually out, I think it will come back down to normal. But these are the kind of guys that are going to be the future of the Republican Party. And we now no longer have to wonder, what do they really think? Because this puts front and center the way these guys think and the way these guys are, and they are going to be the future leaders in the Republican Party in the future. Well, maybe not these specific guys, since after the release of these chat logs, a lot of them were released from their positions in an obvious attempt at damage control from the Republican Party. But this was just one chat log from one span of time of one Telegram chat by a very select group of guys. There are many, many others, undoubtedly. When you turn over a rock and see all the bugs and worms and stuff underneath, you don't think you've seen them all. There are other rocks. There are other bugs. You know that there are more. We know that this is not an isolated group of guys who just happen to feel like this is their place. This is happening all over, almost definitely. So in a decade when these young guys are slightly older guys and deep entrenched into the Republican Party, what does that say for the future of that party and their relations with Democrats and the rest of the country? And establishment Republicans can say, oh no, these young guys, they don't speak for us or the party. Or they could say, oh, they were just joking. They didn't mean it, which I guess is true. They weren't speaking in their official roles. They were speaking in a private chat room amongst their fellows, but that shouldn't make a difference. And also, even if they were jokes, these were awful things, and you can't just downplay awful things and say, oh, they were just jokes. The meaning is still there. The intent is still there. Whether or not it was a joke or not is not the point. Or they could pull a page out of their idol Donald Trump's book and say, oh, this was all a political hit job. Our enemies leaked these to discredit us and defame us, as one of the young guys found in those chat logs has already tried to claim. But this is the reality of the Republican Party on the lower levels. The party that is incensed when you call them fascists or Nazis because that's offensive and wrong, are openly praising Hitler, praising fascist ideologies in private in these chat rooms where they're only amongst people who are like them and agree with them. The hypocrisy would be amazing if it wasn't so commonplace now from them. And with just about everything having to do with Republicans in modern politics, it comes down to, what are you going to do about it? And really the answer is, I don't know what you can do about it. Sure, we can all point at these particular guys from this particular chat and say, oh, look how bad these guys are being in these chat logs. But it's not as if this ideologies, this sort of language, this sort of talk amongst the guys is uncommon, so that we almost have to assume that a decade from now, all of our elected Republican officials are going to have a history of this sort of thing, and that deep in their hearts they harbor these sort of sexist, misogynist, racist, ableist, awful views. They just can't come up on the floor of the Senate and say it. They can't say it on the campaign trail, but we know, and future Republican voters will know, and they will vote for them because they know, hey, I feel that way. I know they do too. I think they've effectively dispelled any illusion that not only is the Republican Party a party of hatred, that it's going to continue to be so well into the future, headed by these self-same young Republicans who will then be mature older Republicans. When discussing what would happen if the public ever came upon their chats, one guy wrote, if we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real. But if anyone is truly cooked, I think it's going to be this country. If these are the type of guys who are going to be the future party leaders and operatives for the Republican Party. One of the few glimmers of hope in our current political times is that someday maybe the Republicans would become less extreme, less openly hateful and vile, and that they would go towards the middle a bit, and we could maybe be more unified as a nation. But if this truly is an indication of how the future of the Republican Party will be, I don't think we could even cling to that hope. And a loss of hope is certainly the last thing we need right now. All right, that's going to be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time, when I cut you off, another slice of news.